How do we develop hobbies we would like to do together? How do you overcome preconceived notions based on marriage examples you grew up with? My spouse and I both want children, but people make it sound impossible and not worth it. Thoughts? You guys love a good marriage Q&A, and even though we haven't done one officially since season 1, it's still one of our most popular episodes. So today I am joined by Genee Francis and Jeremy Marshall, both with experience in marriage and family counseling, and also WinShape team members who I get the pleasure of working alongside. They love marriage and family and speaking life and wisdom into this arena from their wealth of knowledge and experience. Together, we answer your questions about marriage. You're going to love this episode. Genee Francis, Jeremy Marshall, welcome back to the WinShape Marriage Podcast. You've each been on individually, but this is a new treat to have you guys on together. So excited to have y'all. And I know that you work on our WinShape Marriage team. You are now working for the WinShape College program. But as a brief reminder for everyone listening, or those listening for the first time who haven't heard you guys before, give us a quick overview of who you are and what you do.
Very good. I'm Genee Francis, and I am the Assistant Director of Content and Programming for WinShape Marriage. I'm also a licensed therapist, and I've been working with couples and families and individuals for the past 18 years.
Perfect.
Mm-hmm. And I'm Jeremy Marshall, as you said, now the Director of the WinShape College program, and been associated with the college ministry for most of my time at WinShape, almost 20 years, and it was working with students that drew me also into the counseling world, and so I've been doing marriage counseling for about 5 years, in addition to the college role.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So you guys both have background, obviously with WinShape, but then in your own right in kind of the marriage and family space as well, which is why I wanted to have you guys on today. We are doing a marriage Q&A, and so we have taken questions that were submitted by WinShape Marriage retreat attendees and podcast listeners, taken just a wide variety of questions, and just kind of want to lob them at you guys and get your thoughts, different perspectives, female, male. Obviously, you guys are in, your own marriages, your own families, so want to hear your perspectives to a lot of these questions and just kind of see what you're thinking about them. So we've done episodes in the past surrounding some of these questions, and as we go through, I'll definitely mention if we have, and we'll link related episodes in the description of this podcast episode for those listening. So if you are curious and want to do a deeper dive into some of these questions, we'll definitely make sure you have that information. But excited to hear y'all's perspectives this morning. So thanks for being here. And we're going to kick it off with a question from a couple that said, how do we prioritize time together while both of us have high stress, high time consuming jobs?
Genee, kick us off.
You want to kick us off?
Yeah.
Okay. I think that is the reality for a lot of couples in this current age. And so I think you have to, first of all, prioritize the marriage. And I think sometimes we get caught on what we can't do and really focusing on those windows of opportunity. And so really moving from what we don't have time for to how can we make time and how do we prioritize that? So I think it takes great intentionality to figure out how to carve out windows. And I would say also be flexible. I think sometimes we think that time looks a certain way. So time looks like it has to be at night, or time looks like it has to be a weekend date. But if you've got a pocket where you can meet for coffee in the morning, or if you can, get together for lunch, I think we also have to kind of move outside the box or what we think time looks like in a marriage.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's really good. I think, we can get caught in some shame about here's the list of all the things I should be doing, and here's the time I have, and I'm failing.
That's right.
And the reality is there are things we have to do. There are things we want to do, things we are looking forward to doing, and maybe at a different season of life. My wife and I have had dates at Walmart.
That's right.
We've had dates at the grocery store. We've had dates cleaning out our garage. And so, Genee, I just echo everything you say, that it's doing our lives together and being present in that is always an opportunity, regardless of what's going on. And we also want to be long-term, looking ahead to times we can also sequester and be apart. And some seasons of life that's easy, and some seasons of life that's really, really hard.
That's right. That's right. I love what you said too, because as you're talking about, the list of things, and you're kind of doing your hand like that, makes me think that that's actually an exercise that would be good for couples to look at. Like, what is on our plate?
Yes.
And actually take a little paper plate and divide it and really write out some things, because I think sometimes you look at what's on your plate and then you can make decisions around what needs to stay, or some things that we can possibly move over to the side for now, and so that we can create more time and space for our marriage.
Absolutely. And earlier, when you were answering, I loved something you said about being flexible and being open to spending intentional time together at different times of like the day or even the week, and not being just, in your head every Friday night or something like that, because that might not realistically work. And that hits home definitely for me. So my husband works in the emergency room, and he's on shift 14 days a month, and it is all over the place. And so we aren't always guaranteed like a very routine rhythm, a Friday night or a Saturday morning or whatever the case may be. So we might do a date night or, on a Tuesday night. That's or right. We might meet for lunch in the middle of the week, one week. So we've definitely taken to that piece of advice for us, in our season of life as well. So great wisdom in all of this.
Yeah, and you started with, you have to prioritize it. And I think it's true that what our priorities really are, we'll make time for it.
That's right.
But if it's not already prioritized in our minds and hearts, we won't think of it. And so when my marriage is a priority and I get something canceled, I immediately think, oh, is Stacy available for us to connect? If it's not currently a priority, I'm going to think, oh, I'm going to go take a nap,
That's
or
right.
what I'm going to do for me.
Right.
And
That's
so
right. That's good.
the priority comes before the scheduling.
Absolutely.
That's good.
That's really good.
Super good. So this is a little bit similar in the question. So it's a follow-up to the first one I just said, which is, I struggle to have more of myself to give at the end of the workday. What do you recommend for making sure I still have room for my spouse? Kind of similar to what you were saying about that priority, I imagine. But
Yeah, well, when I was going through my counseling program on top of full-time WinShape role, I would, a couple days a week, I would have a full day at WinShape and then 4 hours of counseling. And so by the time I came home, definitely the tank was running on empty. And for me, it was two things. One, I think the idea of liturgies in our life. So liturgies are these structured practices of presence. We typically associate them with worship, but we can have liturgies to prompt us for all sorts of spaces. And so I had to develop a liturgy of commute home that released everything that I had been carrying through the day, and a space for me to ask and answer the question, what presence do I want to have when I get home? Because if I don't choose it, the posture that's going to choose me is not going to be a good one.
That's
and
right.
my family can tell you what that looks like.
yeah,
So that's one piece. And I think the other piece, I know that for me, I tend to come home with the mentality of, I need to be all the things, and I need to provide all the things, and be able for all the people. And there can be a good piece in that, but it misses half of the marriage dynamic. Because it's not just that I need to make space for Stacy and for her, but there's also an opportunity to receive care from her. And so if I come home empty and I say, Stacy, I need you to hold me and pray for me, that's not selfish. That's inviting intimacy and connection. And so I think it's also helpful, if we're running on empty, to not see saving time for my spouse as this laborious thing. It's an equal opportunity for give and for take.
I love that.
That's good.
Yeah, that is really good.
That's really good.
You know, I think sometimes we put a lot of pressure on ourselves. And again, going back to something else I just said around, we think that at the end of the day is when we need to be pouring into our marriages or pouring into our children. And so what it creates is almost this thing, this leftover mentality, you know. And so we have given out all that we have. We've cooked the best foods, the best meal, and we have given it to our neighbor. We've given it to the mailman. We've given it to our coworkers. We have just distributed the best out, and so all we have now are these little crumbs left. And at the end of the day, we think that you know that is sufficient. And I think sometimes we have to figure out again, how do we balance and redistribute, and also understand that again, it's not our daily task to, like, to your point of being able to give every day. Yeah. Sometimes we need to be able to receive, but I think at the end of the day, our heart posture needs to align with, how do I give first fruits to my family? Because that is my first ministry.
That's right.
Not everything else. And so if we're keeping that order that the Lord has designed for marriage, then I think letting that be our first fruit ministry and not always getting down to the leftover type of mentality.
Absolutely. Wow, so much wisdom in our first two questions. I'm like, what is going to come as we keep going in this Q&A? Wow, those are really, really good thoughts, really, really good thoughts. How do we play together when we like different things? So getting into the more of the fun here.
Yes. You know, this is something I have heard a lot of, and I still, even talking to friends and just random people, this is something that people really struggle with in terms of, like, I like these things, my spouse likes these other things. And I don't think marriage calls us to be the same. I don't think the goal is for us to like the same things and become little, versions of each other. I just don't think that is the goal. I think when we think two becomes one, I don't think that's quite what we're talking about. Yeah. So for me, I think it's an opportunity to discover and to explore and to be curious. And how do I learn more about my spouse? How do I connect with my spouse in doing some of the things that they do, and vice versa? And so I can tell you, like, football was not my thing at all 20 years ago, right? But my husband has always gone to football. He loves college football, and it's always been his thing to attend games live. And so early on in our marriage, we started going to games, and I would go maybe once season with them. We would go to the games or whatever. And now it is my joy, and I look forward to it, and it's so much fun. And who would have thought, right? When we first started, we've been married almost 18 years, but it's like, who would have thought? Yeah. So I think sometimes if we have an open heart, we can lean in and learn more things about life and other topics and ourselves. Yeah. Yeah. So.
Again, everything you just said, totally on board with. And there's going to be things that one of you likes that the other's never going to get on.
That's right.
I love strategic board games. My wife will never play one, and that is totally fine. Okay. I have my board game friends. Yeah. She's going to a bluegrass festival this weekend with friends, and she can go and be blessed.
There you go.
And that. I think we can also get caught and think of play is this type of activity.
Yes.
When I think having a playful posture in your relationship, that's not sequestered. Okay, we're going to play this game, and then we're going to be really serious. Our posture with each other's can be. We can have a playful posture in our parenting. We can have a playful posture in our sex life. We can invite playfulness into how we interact. It doesn't have to be tethered into this shared hobby. If you grow towards that, that's great.
Yeah. Right.
But if you don't, that means that you don't have the opportunity to have playfulness in your marriage. So don't sequester it to those activities.
Yeah, that's good.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is one of the questions when I saw this, I was thinking, I hope that this person asking listens to our episode that we did on play, where we broke down all the different play types and how you can engage in playfulness with your spouse in a variety of ways. And it's not just what you think of. It has to be like, we play a board game, or like, we do this one thing, and inviting that into your marriage. So we'll definitely link that. But I love just how you guys had us thinking too about, okay, so maybe there will be things that you grow to love and enjoy, and you don't know until you try and you start dipping your toes in the water a little bit. And then maybe you do, and then you never do
don't.
again.
That's right. Yeah.
And so just kind of, using it as an opportunity to figure it out and just to try. Okay. How do we, so similar. So I don't know if you guys have a new thought to this, and you might not, but in case this person says, how do we seek out or develop hobbies that we would like to do together? So off of what we were just saying, if you guys have any specific thoughts to developing kind of a mutual hobby.
I'll say, just playing off of what Genee said, trying out and being curious about your spouse's interests is great. Also, not feeling the pressure or giving the pressure to, if you love me, you'll like this.
Absolutely.
Because that energy rarely goes to a good place.
That's
Be
right.
curious and explore. And if you both desire a shared activity and your stuff and my stuff don't really jive together, then start trying things that neither of you have
That's
done.
right.
And you'll
That's
find
good.
some things that you both love, and it can be a new discovery together.
That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah, that's good.
And sometimes, again, I think, like you said earlier, we get caught in thinking like a hobby has to be like we both have to paint, or like we both have to enjoy working on cars or something. Maybe your hobby is that you both just really enjoy coffee shops. Maybe one of you really enjoys reading and one of you really enjoys painting, and you both enjoy that, but you enjoy just being together at a coffee shop.
Sure.
You go there together, you do your things, but you're together. So maybe it might be something that's like not quite as out there as you think. It might just be that you guys love Mexican food and you make it a hobby to go find the best salsa like at all the
right.
Mexican
I
restaurants.
can get down
around
with
you.
that hobby.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think too, speaking towards what Jeremy just mentioned about, the pressure that sometimes couples put on this topic, I think also posturing yourself and just the goal is connection.
Right.
So if we are engaged in an activity, a thing, or even a conversation before we even get to the thing, and we are feeling disconnected, stressed, pressured, to me, let that inform you and together make a decision on how do we move closer to each other in this so that it doesn't become this point of contention. And so again, if the goal is to connect, the connection is more important than the thing.
Yes.
Or, you know what I mean?
Yes.
good.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. Switching gears off this lane, how do you overcome preconceived notions based on marriage examples you grew up with? It's a hard one.
I'm proud of the person asking the question to recognize
That's right.
that that's a thing.
The
And
awareness.
you're ahead of the game by recognizing I come into my marriage with preconceived notions. And that's not just what I grew up close to. That's social expectations. That's
right.
TV shows I watched. That's things that I saw at school. Now things that I saw online. And so I think recognizing that we all bring preconceived notions, being conscious of that is really good. And I think a great just conversation prompt, not for one time, but ongoing with my spouse. What do I have in me that I'm bringing in? What is maybe an opportunity that we want to hold on to as a vision, and what do we want to say, hey, this is an idea that I have that actually I'm afraid is going to be reality. I don't want it to be. So everyone has them.
Yeah.
Some of us are aware of them.
That's
so
right.
step one, if you're not aware, be aware.
Yes.
And then have that conversation together and decide, take agency. What do we want to take and what do we want to lay down?
That's right. That's right. And I think what you're describing is there needs to be a process of examining the template. We all come in with templates, and we all need to examine not only the template, but the messenger of the template. So is it the TV? Is it social media? Is it our parents? Is it the health of the relationship, or how fractured their relationship was? So I think once you examine it, then you can decide, does that shoe fit for you and your current marriage? And I think that's the work that you do individually first with the awareness piece, but then I think you work with your spouse to figure out, what do we want to accept and what do we want to take, and then what do we need to leave outside.
Yeah, absolutely. This feels like a follow-up that's a little bit deeper to that, but thinking about those examples in your life, another person asked, how does having divorced parents affect the health and expectation of my marriage?
My first thought to that is it doesn't guarantee. So just because you come from a divorced family does not mean that you are going to come in with any preconceived notion of a negative outlook on marriage. But should you, right? Should you have negative effects? Divorce, regardless of how positive or how healthy or how contained your parents maintained your childhood, the end of the day, it causes some disruptions to some of your trust, potentially safety, permanence. So I think knowing that, having that awareness, and then looking at how does that then impact me personally, because all of us are impacted differently who come from divorced families. And so just dealing with the reality of your particular situation and really looking at how it has impacted you, that awareness is so good to inform you and then to be able to work with your spouse on how do we kind of work to overcome that.
I just say amen to that. Nothing to add. So good, Genee.
And I love that you said that it can affect differently. So if you each came from divorced parents, examining how that has affected each of you and not putting pressure on the other of like, well, it should have affected you. Like, you don't know. Like, it affects you each differently, but examining that as an individual, examining that as a couple, and seeing how that then plays into your marriage as well. Okay, moving into a parenting lane. I've heard from so many couples how hard parenting is. My spouse and I both want children, but people make it sound impossible and not worth it. Thoughts?
That's funny and honest.
It is good.
I would say if both you and your spouse have a shared desire for children, you should follow that desire, recognizing that it is really hard, but so is marriage. And if you didn't go into marriage knowing it was hard, you probably know now. But I'm hearing you're not regretting being married because it's rich. It's not easy, but it has an opportunity for a richness. And same thing with parenting. Not having kids is easier than having kids. I don't think you'll find someone that disagrees with that, but there's a richness and a growth individually and even in marriage that can happen with that expanded family. That's a beautiful opportunity. And so don't be afraid of hard. That didn't scare you away from marriage.
That's right.
And it shouldn't scare you away from parenting.
No, that's good. I agree with everything you said. I think it's a transformational process. And if you lean in to the hard, because the struggle is real, like it is, right? But I think that it's a beautiful opportunity to really love like Christ and really understand that it is sacrificial. You know, there's a lot of grace that's extended. Takes a lot of patience. You learn to grow in humility. Nothing has humbled me more than my children. And so I think, and also my greatest teacher is my oldest son. And I say that with all love and respect just for the process and the journey. And so I think that you have to be realistic about that piece, but also understanding that there's an opportunity, a richness, and you really learn how to really depend on God. At least I have.
I think where this question comes from, I don't know for sure, but I can imagine like you hear over and over, it's hard, it's impossible, it's tiring, you don't sleep, like all negative. And I think this wasn't in here, but so this is kind of off the cuff for a second, but I think there sometimes is a desire of like, just tell me something good.
Absolutely.
Like, what is the good? So totally throwing something new at you, but off the top, do you guys have one thing that you would share that you're like, this has been my greatest joy in parenting? This has been the thing that's been worth it?
I'm going to shy away from the word greatest because that feels like some pressure.
Okay, this has been a joy.
But I'll also, just from current stage. So currently we have 3 daughters, 17-year-old, 15-year-old, and 12-year-old.
Okay.
And so a really deep joy in my current stage is seeing the humans, like the becoming adult humans that I now get to interact with in a way that is a lot of times collaborative, and I'm starting to have conversations where they're bringing insight to me. And so I think a lot of times the horror stories or the travail and bemoaning is those early years where it's just 24 hours a day of pouring out and pouring out and pouring out, and it does feel eternal. But over time, you have these children who are still your children, but they also slowly start becoming peers that you can share life with in a really rich way. And so I'm starting to have friends come to me and say, hey, I ran into Addison and we just had a conversation. Like she was asking me about how this thing went. And so a pride in seeing the adults they're becoming is such a rich reward, not an exchange reward, but just a fruitfulness reward that brings a lot of joy right now.
That's what I was going to say too. That is so sweet. I love that. Fruit. I'm just going to pick that word up. I think that's my greatest joy in this season, is just being able to see the fruit. And so I think you do a lot of sowing and you do a lot of investing and a lot of tears and energy and all the things, you know, those early years. But I think as they begin to get older, my boys are 10 and 11. Okay. And being able to see them and to listen to them and to also experience other people or people experience them, their experience through other people. And they come back and they're like, oh, Genee, you know, these little things. And I'm like, you know what I mean? It's like, you know, like, okay, Lord, like all is not lost. So I think the joy is just being able to see the fruit of your labor and really understanding that these are good humans, you know, and just the little seeds that you plant, you know, the early years, and when you're able to hear them give that back to you, it's just like, oh my goodness. The other thing I would say too is I think that there is an unconditional love and care and concern that you know, children have for their parents, and I think, you know, sometimes parents aren't worthy, but they give it anyway, and so I think that is a beautiful gift and great joy for me, just personally, just knowing like they are such a representation of God's grace and God's forgiveness, because we don't always get it right. And so that to me has also been a beautiful joy through the years.
Connected to that, I think there's aspects of the Father's love. The concept I took up, not anybody else's fault, I just took it up. The posture I took up was God kind of begrudgingly accepts me. Like, okay, well, because I'm so good, you know, come on over. But it's really been parenting that has shown me what that unconditional love and delight in who they are, regardless of how they're showing up. That broke through to my heart in a way that a lot of Sunday school and an undergraduate in Bible and 2 master's degrees didn't hit my heart in the same way as those little girls.
Delight in who they are, regardless of how they show up.
That's right.
Oof, that is good. That is good. Okay. Thanks for letting me kind of veer there for a second. I feel that negative sometimes, and it's like, but it's good. It's worth it. I want to hear the good. So thank you guys for sharing that. I really appreciate it. What are your tips for a newly married couple who is expecting a baby sooner than they thought, and they have a fear of losing connection?
I've actually walked with a few couples who were in our college program that Stacy and I were mentors of, that some of them even some honeymoon babies that were not part of the plan. And man, I think initially, this might sound counterintuitive. I think giving space for the grief
That's right.
of what the loss of what we thought we were going to have and what we thought we were going to experience, I think that's good and that's healthy. And I think if we feel guilty, like, oh, if I grieve, that means I don't want this child, totally not the truth. I think if we don't give ourselves permission to go through that grieving process, it's a barrier to fully moving into the new reality. And so I think initially just crying together and talking about the things that we thought we were going to do in the next couple of years that are no longer on the menu, go fully into that, maybe find some mentors that have gone through a similar season.
Yeah.
And then that creates space to say, okay, we've laid this down and we've grieved this. This is the new reality. What are some new dreams that we can dream as a result of this new life? One of the first couples we walked through, they're gonna be just about beating us to the empty nest stage. Not that we're racing to that, but they're gonna have some earlier opportunities for connection in that season. And so they've been dreaming towards that. So grieve first.
Yeah.
And then new dreams.
Yeah.
I agree with that. I think that was beautifully said. And the question was for newlyweds, but I'll talk to you a little bit about the other side because there's also, and I'll use myself as an example. My husband and I waited 6 years before we had our first son, and then 18 months later, right?
You don't have to be a newlywed.
Right. So you don't have to be a newlywed to feel those feelings, right?
That's
and
good.
so I want to normalize it for, maybe people who are a little bit more seasoned in life and in marriage, because we were both.
Yeah.
And so I think, and I will say that part of our stress and our anxiety around this pregnancy that was not planned is our life. We committed to the spreadsheet. So it was planned and budgeted and it was thought out. And so we had done that for our first son. Right. And then we were going to pause, reset, right, before we made decisions on other children. And the Lord blessed us, right, with this baby. And so at the end of the day, there is grief.
Yeah.
And I had to lean in because not only did I have some grief, but I had some denial. So I had to work through some things within myself, but then we had to work through some things as a couple. So what I say to that is really just at the end of the day, once I got over myself, right, and was able to deal with my feelings, what I had to then do is look to God and just say, oh my gosh, like you did this. So tell me more.
Yeah.
Right? Tell me more. But
good.
what came real for me in that moment, I would say, the scripture, all things work together for the good of those who love the Lord. And I had to put a comma and then I wrote, even this. That's when that scripture
good.
became real for me.
Yeah.
Even this. So this is good and this is purposed. And I can tell you 10 years later, that is absolutely the truth. And I knew it as soon as that baby came out, as soon as they laid him on my chest. So I just think you have to go through the feelings and I think you have to sort through it all. But at the end of the day, I literally had to lean into my faith and my trust in God.
Yeah. And not being afraid of the feelings. I love that of you don't have to bury them and like push them down. In fact, that's not the recommendation that you guys are giving. The recommendation is no, acknowledge those, put those out, put those on the table, speak out what you're thinking, feeling, lean on your spouse, process it with someone else if that would be helpful. And then begin that journey of moving forward. But it's not about dismissing and don't think like this, don't think like this. Like, it's not really going to be helpful.
That's right.
Yeah.
So once children arrive, planned or unplanned or any of the above.
That's right.
Once they're here, how do we stay connected to each other?
I'll just say that one of the best things, my husband and I are both pretty structured people, and so I talked about the spreadsheet and all the things. So the other thing we are really good at is creating systems and schedules. So what I will say is your children will help throw all that out the water, right? So forget the budget, forget what you thought we were doing today. Like, that's not how this is going to work. However, what I will say is something we've always been very committed to is the schedule and bedtime. Always. And so, those early months, you got to get them to, they'll go to sleep and they'll stay asleep and all the things. So you have to get through that. But once you get through that, being able to set a schedule, I think, has really helped. It helped us then. It helps us now. We get laughed at. And some of our friends are like, y'all still that serious about a bedtime? Absolutely. Absolutely, because we're that serious about our marriage.
That's good.
And so I would say systems and a schedule for most of the time allows you to create space for your spouse on the top of the day, end of the day, wherever it works out.
Yeah, I think the only thing I would add is just being mindful of the content of your time together with young kids. It's really, really easy to begin that business partner vibe because there's so much of that demand.
That's right.
In just managing the existence of us as people. And so just kind of regularly auditing, are we having conversations that are not about, okay, you pick up there and I get there and we got 2 diapers left and we got to go to this thing. And so knowing that the quantity you might want of beautiful heart sharing times might not be what you want it to be, but even 5 minutes of lay down the agendas is better than nothing.
That's right.
And so being mindful of that, get that heart connection, even if it's just a couple of minutes, to just make eye contact with no words.
That's
just
right.
so this is still priority, even though the demands of our energy are here for now.
Yeah,
That's right.
That's true. That's been hard for me, and it's been something that I've definitely tried to lean into. I am certainly not perfect at it, but there have been some times where I see the bottles piling up and I see like the diaper pail needs to be taken out and the vacuum needs to be run and all the things. And Cody has looked at me and he's like, will you just come sit on the couch with me? And I'm like,
that's a good
no, but I
invitation.
need to do all these things. And sometimes I have been like, no, but I really need to do these things. And it's not been helpful. And where it's been the most fruitful and the most helpful is when I say, okay. And it's hard. It's hard as a person who wants to like get all of it, And there have been days where it has been more helpful for me to get the things done, but really trying to evaluate to my heart posture and leaning in. Like he's offering that time for connection, even if it is 5 or 10 minutes. And sometimes I need to just lay it down and listen to that too.
That's really good. And I'll say the other side of that. So sometimes you need to say, yes, I'm going to lay that down and sit. And sometimes the freedom to say, hey, buddy, I want this too. My heart and mind will be freed up if you could join me for the next 20 minutes. And if we can knock these things out,
Right.
The other 8 things I'll lay down.
Right.
And so, there's a,
The give and take.
sometimes I got to lay down my stuff
Yeah.
and sometimes you got to lay down your stuff, and it's back and forth.
Yeah,
right.
absolutely. Okay. Thank y'all so much that we are moving through these. I am really enjoying this Q&A. I hope you guys listening are. I know we've been a little bit all over the place in the questions, but I think that's what I love about this is it provides an opportunity to just fire out those questions that aren't always so like you're not focused on one specific thing, but you kind of get to just hear the different perspectives of the parenting season, the newlywed season, the season about connection and hobbies and all the things. And so I'm just appreciative that you guys are able to go with me on all these different directions and want to thank you for that. Want to ask this question here. How do we keep family opinions from influencing decisions together? And there's a part 2. How do you handle it when your spouse's parents give unsolicited advice about your marriage?
I think a question that elicits laughter from both of us mid-question goes to the 18 years of practice first.
Absolutely.
So, Genee, why don't you kick us off with
You
this one?
know, well, my answer, right? I think one of the things that we do is we empower others by the access that we give them.
Oh, that's good.
And so I think when you get married, right, the covenant is between you, your spouse, and the Lord. And I think sometimes it's hard. It's hard. Family systems is real. And so whatever your role was or is in your family system with your family of origin, a lot of times it's hard to just take that off because now I'm married. Mm-hmm. But one of the things I think is important to learn is how do we create a conversation and almost a sacredness of our union together that is really, truly the two of us and the Lord. Mm. So I think with decisions, I think that's where it should start. And then you kind of move from a place where you're asking for input to you're more so informing, right? But I think there's a growth and a natural evolution. I don't think you can do that right out the gate, depending on, right, your role in your family system. Mm. So some awareness and then some opportunity to learn and grow is a first step. And how do you do that?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think sometimes, again, we are going to our parents or to someone to ask. And at the end of the day, that's not really where we should start in a marriage relationship. So I'll pause there.
What comes to my mind as you're sharing is also something I encounter a lot is the you're talking about what space you create, who manages the boundaries, who's responsible for that. And I think that I am responsible with the boundaries primarily with my parents, and my wife is primarily responsible with the boundaries with her parents, because what can unintentionally happen is because of dynamics that existed before I met my spouse, I don't want to disrupt this. And so when they say, well, I know that you'd listen to us if it weren't for her, it's easy to just not say anything because you don't want to disrupt this. You don't agree with it, but you don't want to say anything. And then you start creating this dynamic here that then you feel trapped in between, which doesn't feel good for either party. And so a way of loving our spouse is saying, hey, this is the covenant right here. And either thank you for sharing or please, I this is not something I need, but being the gatekeeper and protecting the spouse from that input of the other side. And I think the other thing is just my perspective is that, or my experience has been that the wiser someone is, the less they're prone to give me unsolicited advice. Wisdom tends to be a lot more quiet and have to be sought out. And so you may have really wise parents that you would like to together say, what's your take on this? And wise parents will say, we'll share what we have, but the decision is yours. That's what wisdom sounds like. And if you've got people dropping in on demands of what you should do, that's usually not what wisdom sounds like.
And sometimes it's hard to discern the difference.
Right.
If you come from families where that wisdom is not intact. I'll share this. My mother will tell you she raised us to be independent, self-sufficient, to be able to make decisions, sound decisions, and so she will tell you that, and she'll tell anybody that. But at the end of the day, I used to go to her just at the end of this is before I got married, but I would go to her just to run things by her. And I will never forget first time we got married, or the early years, and the first time I went to her rather with a question, and my mother's kind of quiet, and so she just kind of listened. And then she looked at me and she said, have you spoken to Rashad? What does he say?
That's wisdom.
That's wisdom. And my feelings were hurt. I was crushed because she had not ever really assumed that posture, but I also had never been married before. And so in that, I learned. That was such a good teacher, and it was a quiet lesson. She didn't say anything more than that, but it did help me to figure out how this really should work. And so I think sometimes without those lessons and those teaching moments, it's like, how do you know? What do you do in those instances? And so anyway, I just think sometimes it's a good reminder to start there.
Yeah.
And then once I've done that, then I might be able to come back and she may share a word or two or not, right? But at the end of the day, let's keep it in perspective and let's keep it in order.
That's good.
I love how you were able to give a real life example off of what you were sharing. That was really cool. My traditional, this one was an interesting one. My traditional Christian parents believe I should be submissive in my marriage rather than have an equal partnership. Am I wrong to disagree?
I love your posture on this. You got to share it.
Oh, I was going to have you share first. But, okay, Genee.
Yes.
So there's so many ways I could start with this, but I think the simplest way is, so the tension here typically is in how we hold Ephesians chapter 5. And I, as a Bible major years ago, one of the primary principles of biblical interpretation is you allow Scripture to interpret Scripture. And so if you've got a verse, there's like, this person thinks this, and this person thinks this, and this person thinks this, then you say, okay, what does the Bible think about this right here? And so in Ephesians 5, there's a lot of language around the husband is the head of the wife, as Christ is the head of the church. I think the most important verse for interpreting those is the call for a husband to love his wife as Christ loves the church. So the action that I see in Ephesians 5, along with a lot of conceptual language, the action is, okay, I'm supposed to love Stacy as Jesus loves the church. So what is that? When I read the Gospels, what do I see? I see Jesus serving. I see him sacrificing. I see him feeding. I see him healing, washing feet. I see him dying. Like that's the to-do list. And so I think that when you see submit to one another, and then wives submit to husbands, husbands love their wives, I think where it starts is a husband giving himself up for his wife. And I think that you hear the word traditional, well, our traditional concept of leadership in the 21st century in America is about authority and is about taking up my rights and taking up what I can have. And that Christ put that upside down. And so I would say that what I take away from Ephesians 5 is that if there's not an equality in that mutual submission, if there's not an equality, the inequality is that I as the husband should give up more than my wife does. I should get less preference than my wife does. And I should give my preference less often than my wife does. And so my challenge as a leader to love my wife as he loves the church is one of submitting to the will of the Father. You don't see Jesus in the Gospels making demands, getting his way. He says, I'm here to do the Father's will. That's all. I'm here to give up my will, surrender my will to the Father. So it's a posture of surrender. Tell me what I missed, Genee.
That's good.
That is so
I can listen to him do that. Like that is like one of my favorite like Jeremy explanations.
Yeah.
That is so sound.
Yeah.
And I think it's such a beautiful illustration of Ephesians 5 and really what that true posture is. And so I don't have to add anything to that.
Yeah.
Isn't that
I
good?
remember you
It's so
telling
rich.
me before that Jeremy had one of the best explanations of that, and I had yet to hear it.
Yes.
So, wow, that was a blessing. That was good. Okay, last question. We've made it to the end,
Wow.
you guys. And I saved this one for last because both of you do have counseling backgrounds. And so I love this one, and I wanted to end our time with it. And this person said, when is it okay to go to marriage counseling? pause. And what do you do if your spouse isn't on the same page about getting help? It's kind of a two-part.
So I'll take the first part and just say when. Oh, like it's probably easier to say when you shouldn't, right? Yeah. I think marriage is probably one of the only things that we engage in constantly and daily that we don't prioritize to receive any type of fueling, and so I think just creating this normalcy around this idea of we need routine maintenance, just like we do for our jobs and our vehicles and everything else that we use every day. So I think, premarital, right, is a good time when you're thinking and you're considering marriage. I think that's a great time to get counseling. But I also think it's a great time when you are in a system of change, especially unexpected change. My husband and I, we found out we were pregnant with our second son. That took us to counseling because it's a great time for us to sit with somebody else to be able to process, the unexpected things of life. I think whenever you begin to feel seriously disconnected, and you begin to kind of sense that there's some withdrawing going on and we're just not clicking, I think it's a great opportunity. And I think if you take opportunities before you get into this crisis state, it could really help you from getting there. But again, if you're in crisis, it's also a good time to go.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I'm hearing you say, like, those other opportunities might not be a crisis opportunity, but kind of almost catching it before it gets to the crisis.
Sure.
Obviously, if you're in the crisis,
sure,
that is the time. But paying attention to those other seasons that might just feeling like a little bit off. Like one of our wheels are out of alignment here. Yeah. Okay.
I agree. And with the second part, I think it's a very common situation where one spouse really feels a deep need for counseling, and the other spouse either doesn't see the need or just isn't interested, doesn't feel safe, whatever it is. That can feel like a very helpless place, a very trapped place. But I think that if you deeply desire counseling for your marriage, but your spouse is not open to it, that doesn't prevent you from going and getting care for yourself. And a great concept in marriage counseling is the idea of my heart is my deal and my spouse's heart is their deal. And there's the imagery of a kind of a garden. I've got my garden and they've got my garden. And so there's always freedom and there's always agency to tend to my garden, to tend to my heart, to grow, to get more and more healthy. And the more and more healthy I get, the more inviting it becomes for the other person to join me in that. And in situations where you feel like things maybe are at a crisis point, having a counselor who's not in that relationship and not in that system to be able to reflect back to you is vital, because when things are getting increasingly intense, it feels harder and harder to have a sense of what's real and what's true, and having an advocate, someone that's coming alongside of you in that is crucial.
Yeah, that's good. I think a great illustration of that movie Fireproof.
Yeah.
It came out in the early 2000s. But I just remember how, while watching that as a newly married person, it really helped me to see the power of personal transformation and how much that could then bless your marriage. So that the main character in that movie, his wife, that they had really reached a place of disconnection, but he went on a mission to really search himself.
Yeah.
And through that, he learned and gained just some self-awareness, but also was able to take some responsibility and ownership for his role in the breakdown or in the dysfunction that was happening. And also took on this whole thing of... It was called the Love Dare. And so he began like this 30-day walk of being able to show sacrificial love and giving to his wife. And she was not receptive for the most of it. But then because of his change, then her heart started to open, and then their marriage began to reap those benefits. And so to me, that beautifully illustrates how it just takes one person to really do some work on themselves first, and really understanding themselves and then their role in the breakdown, but then being able to seep these really, or plant these beautiful seeds that then just show great return in a marriage. And so I think that there is hope in doing some work by yourself.
Yeah. It's not, all is not lost if it is just an individual journey in the beginning. Maybe it will lead to a journey together, but starting with you can always start with yourself. So, well, that concludes our marriage Q&A. Some really, really thoughtful questions, good questions. Thank you for submitting those questions, being willing to ask them, vulnerable to ask them, because some of them were tough and required some vulnerability to be able to put that out there. And so really grateful for all of you for submitting those, grateful for you guys and your wisdom and advice in answering these this morning. Do you have any final thoughts? I want to give you guys one last opportunity if you have just a closing thought, kind of over the range of our conversation. I know it was all over the place, but would like to provide an opportunity if you have any final words. If not, all good.
What comes to my mind is when you begin to really focus on your marriage, it can be easy to see a bunch of things that I should be doing and executing and doing well at, and no one is doing all the things. At least no one's doing all the things well. And so I would just encourage anyone out there that's like, I long to have this flourishing marriage and we're missing it here and we're missing it here and we're missing it here. Don't invite the shame that comes with that, but use that as an opportunity to come alongside your spouse and dream together and just ask, what's the next one thing that we're going to do? Not the 18 things we're going to do. Just what's the one next thing that will help us take the next step in our marriage? Because it's a long journey, and it's easy to start comparing what we've got to my perception of what they've got, which is maybe not the reality of what they have.
That's right. That's good.
That's really good. Okay. All right. Well, thank you both so much for your time. Really, really grateful and appreciative to have you guys on the WinShape Marriage Podcast today.
Thanks for having us, Marla.
This is great.
And thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode of the WinShape Marriage Podcast. And we will be back next week with a new episode. We hope that conversation blesses your marriage. If you're loving the WinShape Marriage Podcast, will you please take a moment to make sure you're subscribed? You may be a faithful listener and not realized you aren't subscribed. It really helps us out. Also, if you've enjoyed these conversations and they've impacted your marriage, please rate and review this podcast. One listener said, "Thanks so much for pouring into couples with godly wisdom and practical equipping."